Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, Danielle.
Good afternoon.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Nate. I am not happy to be back in Massachusetts after spending the last week in Aruba.
Picked a good
Do not
week to
blame
do it.
you.
Oh, I know. I know it. It was so beautiful down there. Oh my God. Miss it.
Well, welcome back to the snow.
Yeah.
Are we missing everybody?
I think we're missing a few folks that are on their way, so maybe we can just give them another minute and then Nate can pull us to order and do roll call and all of those fun things.
I get to do roll call or someone else does.
I think that will be you,
That would
our
be me.
president. I think that will be our president,
Oh boy.
our chair,
I
I
suppose I
believe.
have to call to make sure I call everybody.
You got this, Nate.
What?
You got this.
Well, that certainly is one of the advantages to waiting until everyone is in the room.
Yeah, it always helps.
we can we can see everyone's faces that way. So I think just waiting for Doug and Maud. Um, and I'm not sure who our K is here.
Someone from the public.
Great. And I know Molly has a hard stop, so maybe we if we have quorum, we could get started just to keep things rolling.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Do roll call. Danielle, Maureen,
Me?
Molly,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
Kate,
Here.
Cole.
Present.
I think. Do I need to call anybody else? Uh, who's missing? Doug? Doug's not here. Okay. So we've got a number of things to go over, and I'll pass it over to Danielle to review
Sure.
what she's got.
Thank you. We'll also announce that this meeting is being recorded. And we are here today to review the graphic design proposals for the Branding Belchertown project. So I'm just going to open up our scorecard here and our recommendations, and I'll share screen just so we can do this. I think many of you saw that we got a really great turnout of applications.
Yeah.
We had 21 submissions, really strong submissions. So I hope
I
that
agree. They were very, very, so I can see why you had favorite. But I can also see a couple of them that are just, they're amazing.
So the work of this group today is really going to be to help decide who is moving on to the interview process. And this was my internal thinking, internal review, so that I could make some recommendations to folks that didn't necessarily have time to read every single one of the applications. The way that I broke up this rubric was to look at the things that we had defined as our assessment rubric. So experience and qualifications, which is, experience working with municipalities or similar contexts and similar environments. So a deep understanding of what this project will entail, the audience, what it's like to work with the municipality. So the folks that got really high scores in that regard stood out to me because they either have done this exact same thing with another municipality or similar, or have done work in very similar communities or with clients that have very similar composition, whether that's a municipality or a rural makeup, or like an organization that has kind of competing interests and varying ideas about what their brand is, right? So those were the kind of ways that I was assessing that line item. Creativity and vision is looking at how strong the designs they actually have done in the past were. It's hard to measure creativity and vision. It's very subjective. I think everyone has like high scores in that regard, but how do they talk about the project? How do they talk about weaving in people's voices? How strong were the visuals from past projects? Community engagement, obviously that's a huge role, a huge factor here. How willing and able and interested are these designers in soliciting, taking, and accepting feedback from this committee and from the public? Like being a designer is a very creative process where people are relying on their own, expertise and artistic vision. How flexible do they seem in their ability to incorporate that feedback? And the ones that really had the top scores very clearly defined when and how community would be engaged in their process that they proposed. They had clearly given a lot of thought to that and made specific recommendations about what that could look like. Budget and timeline, everyone who applied said they could complete this project on time and within the budget. So there were little bonuses for people whose timelines were extremely tight and clear or flexible or whatever. But everyone kind of did well in that category. And then there was a total score that I just used to kind of assess. So the ones that stood out to me the most were Locality Studio. I was extremely impressed by their proposal. I thought they gave a ton of attention to detail and care to the community participation part. And I was very pleasantly surprised that they had budget actually in for a site visit. So I was really impressed by their commitment to really getting to know the community, understand the community, and there were a lot of strong proposals, but I thought that one was really outstanding. Magnifico was one of the designers that had done this exact work for Amesbury, I believe. So one of the generators of the idea for this project, and really demonstrated clear that they know exactly how to do this work and had strong visuals. And let's see, Visual Soldiers, I thought also had a strong proposal. Scout and Mark Yapwing were strong. And then it was hard to cap where to say how many interviews we would do. So I limited it to the top 5 for my recommendation, but there were some really strong proposals that were just under the cumulative score that if you wanted to do more interviews, we could fit them in. But that's all I'll say for now. I'm happy to open any of these so we can share screen and look at them together. But Maureen, Nate, Kate, if there are any that you absolutely want to move forward with recommendations for, I'd say let's confirm our absolute yeses and then assess from there how many additional we would like to consider.
I will say that I'm 100% impressed with the Locality Studio and the Magnifico. Both of them, just seeing their presentations. The Magnifico definitely did speak to me, again, just being in the world of art in regards to, they worked with very good clients that are very just as much as concerned about their branding as and a town as well as we should be about the branding of this town. With that being said, their proposal, it comes across to me, less is more. And it was a very clean proposal, and it speaks to me in the world of art. and how less is more, meaning that they're just not going to take in as much information as you believe they are. So the proposals coming in, Locality Studios proposal was amazing, and Magnifico. So that's kind of the people that I'm giving the strongest interest in.
Can I ask a question on Magnifico? What was it that they didn't follow regarding the submission instructions?
So we had recommended, well, we had said that in order to submit the application, what email to send it to and what was in the subject line, and they did not. They replied to an
Okay.
email with some questions, and we didn't say like that anyone would be penalized for that, but it was a very clear direction on the RFP on
Mhm.
where and how to submit it. And a number of people did not do that. A number of people replied in a separate email to a separate account. And it's a tiny detail,
Mhm.
but when there's such strong proposals, like how do you differentiate? You'll see there were some other folks that like didn't include their visuals in one PDF. They
Yep.
didn't submit on time. There were little tiny things. So that's why I noted them here. But
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to get some clarity on that because I'm totally in agreement with Maureen about how great those two proposals are. But one thing that kind of sets Magnifico apart for me is their location in Massachusetts and the fact that they have already done this for Amesbury.
I agree 100%. That was another
Which
factor.
which Amesbury is sort of our guiding light on all of this. It was their presentation that made us think, yes, we can do this, and we can do it with the budget that we have. So that definitely speaks to that group.
And they came in under budget.
Yeah.
So, and they're just message, we want to partner with Belchertown. I think that, it's just that clear, simple message. When you brand across the board. You don't do one thing here and then something different here. You actually just continually brand, and they just seem so clear on their presentation. The visuals are great on the other one, and like I see the score you gave her, that's without a doubt was phenomenal. But when you have that local person who can, I don't know if you've asked them if they could be on site, but they're right here in Massachusetts.
are you able to see the proposal screen now that I'm sharing?
Yes.
So just in case anyone didn't get a chance to look closely, this is the Magnifico proposal that we're talking about. I did not ask and we did not require being on site at all for the proposal. And what stood out to me about the other one, which we'll shift gears to, I'll show you that one afterwards,
It's not out of line.
was that they built that in on their own, saying like, we really care about this town and community, and we recognize that we are outside of it and we'll be there. So that is what made them stand out to me. I agree that Magnifico is extremely strong and obviously was the starter and the impetus for this project. So, and just to give you a sense, like super clear, like really a well done.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm so impressed with all of these. I haven't gone through them all. I'm getting through like the top five, and I think Locality has such deep experience in community work and community branding. They might have a unique perspective on, the challenges that we're facing and how this has happened in other places. But all that to say, we're not trying to decide based on these applications. So like, yes to the first two to interview them. And then, I mean, I don't know if we want to go up to 5 interviews. Visual Soldiers and Scout Collective both equally looked really good.
I really like Scout, just to throw out my piece as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we could interview all five.
I don't know, like there's obviously trade-offs with working with an agency versus an individual. Mark is the one person, like an individual who made it into the top 5, which could be interesting to learn more about and like figure out how their creative process works as an individual and like what trade-offs we might face with that.
I did like in the first presentation as well, the fact that they had print in, it does matter in case you're going to be, using them for that as well.
This is the Scout presentation.
Yeah,
And
I
also,
thought Scout was very clean, very simple. Kind of hit the it hit the nature side of sort of what I think that we're kind of looking for without being like with also incorporating like the outdoorsy where it's like, it's a topographical map, it's, simple designs of nature and hiking and got that feeling out of it. Um so I don't know, there's something I really liked about it. Plus the breakdown of their calendar of the project timeline I thought was really nice.
Agree.
And to like get into that detail of like what needs to be done and when, I think is
Yeah.
pretty important.
The way they visualized it is really helpful. I don't know that we need like 4 weeks on the strategy piece of it, but I was like, what is a visual tolerance board? And it's more like a vision board or like an exploration, which I think would be really good before they dive in and just show us logos. It's like, let's get a vision board going and see what direction. I liked that a lot.
so this is
And I
an
know they're from Connecticut, but proximity wise, they're closer than most of the others.
yeah, they do a great job of showing their process. So you can see that here. And what's nice about the way this is broken down, and I think all of the designers can and will do this, is that it will make it very easy to explain and share with people and get people excited about. Um, so this tool is going to be very useful for all of us. Okay, so that is, we'll say some of them are longer than others.
Yeah,
So this is like
a
we
lot
don't have to
of
go for all
detail.
60, yeah, all 60 pages. And then this one was visual soldiers.
I think maybe the soldiers one didn't provide maybe enough for me in regards to their capabilities for
Mhm.
exactly what it is we're looking for. It's a great short proposal, but um, Magnifico had a short proposal. It was clear. It spoke more.
Mhm.
Danielle, are you thinking we would follow up with their references after the interview? 'Cause I
Yeah.
know, yeah, like, I thought the same about Visual Soldier, but I like that they had done the Douglasville project and they had listed that person that we could talk to. That would be very telling to see, like, when they walk away, did this actually stick? Did it work in the long term? Was it implemented and all of that? Which one is Mark?
This
That's not.
proposal that you're looking at right now, I didn't find it to be as polished as the other ones, which makes me kind of think about the creativity of the designer.
That's
It
exactly
just
how I
wasn't an
feel.
overly professional, polished proposal. Whereas I felt like the first two were.
I agree.
And I think the difference there is agency versus individual,
Mhm.
right? Like there's probably a team that is in charge of making a great deck. And Magnifico might just be one person too. Like I'm not sure how many staff are with Magnifico if it's
It
just
looked like there was about 9.
okay. So I think that's the distinction that we're seeing, is when you have a whole team to create a deck for you versus if you're one individual designer. I will say one that was really close to me, I had a conversation with Pixelor. They had some questions and gave me a call. I It was a strong proposal, and I think like if we didn't have if these other previous five were not so good, they absolutely would be someone I would recommend to interview. I think that like the person leading their team who's giving me a call has done a lot of very similar projects, um, and would be well worth interviewing. And but it like by a hair, the others were stronger. So I don't know if there are other proposals. I see that Kate made some comments. I don't
Yeah,
know, Kate, if
I
you want
didn't
to
like
share.
I didn't like how they were focusing all their attention on what the branding committee wanted and not taking our community into account.
There you
I
go with
think
that.
that's a big red flag for me for a no on them.
And I see that I just, are there any yeses any no's that you would like to convert to yeses?
I had a maybe that I wanted to convert to a yes, and that was swoon.
Okay. So I'll just open up Swoon so that others can take a look.
I also suggest looking at good again.
Yep.
I like their approach to how they were, how they planned on approaching the project, especially with getting into the stakeholder survey and really looking at who Belchertown is, and getting buy-in, not just from the residents, but also, working with local businesses too, which is, we know, something that has been a struggle in the past.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I thought it was.
So one thing, I know like we're open to different locations, but they are on the 3-hour time difference with us. So just thinking about like scheduling meetings and collaborating together, that we would have that one piece to navigate.
Well, they could be one of the first interviews. Interview them at noon, which would be 9 their time.
I think
Yeah,
that,
I just mean for like if we hired them over the next several months,
Oh
like
yeah,
it's gonna
that's
be
fair.
yeah.
I think that them as the vendor, the onus would be on them to work with our time zone, not for us to work with them because they are the vendor.
Right.
That's good. That is good.
I agree. They just have to get up early.
That's right.
And it's not like the Jakarta one, which is
They're getting
exactly
up when
12
Nate gets
hours
up.
off.
Oh wow, I didn't even see that.
yep. So that's the Swoon. Would anyone like to should I?
I would like to see them added in as well. I think that was a clean proposal.
Okay.
And, it matters when they're approaching the job, so to speak, with Belchertown being at the forefront of their presentation and their interest in the town. That's why they're here. That's why we're doing this.
All right. And I see that Kate also said you would like to take a look at roads.
Yeah, but I think next on the list would be good, which Chris had mentioned. So if we just kind of keep going down the list in order.
Okay. Can everyone see the good process sheet?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Also, they have a Boston office and a Detroit office.
Maud, what did you like about this proposal?
It was clean, it was ready to rock. Their examples were several that are local to here. So there's, that they've worked with the DCR on a lot of things. They worked with the city of Springfield on their wayfinding signage.
Okay.
They've worked with Cambridge, CDC. So they've worked with a lot of organizations and entities like ours and some right around us.
Have you
And
worked
even
with them before?
me, no. I liked their samples and I appreciated that among the proposals that were put in, that they had a significant amount of government experience working with different agencies, whether those were here locally or elsewhere. And I like the design actually too.
They definitely have a design style, like very bright, very bold, lots of colors. Like every one of these is very intense colors.
They are, and they pop out and they stand out and they use people. And in that industry, people look at people, just a fact. This looks, I actually like their artwork.
It
Yeah,
doesn't look the same. Everything has got its own unique feel to it.
And
Yeah.
it's clean.
I think that's important to see. And some of these other presentations have got everything looks the same.
I had noted that this one had, it was less kind of emphasis on the typographic and more like there's a lot of like visual graphic, like this illustration of the bird and the
It's
sapsucker.
clean.
Yeah, they did a lot more illustration type work and as well as typographic, whereas some of these I think are very like type heavy.
Which is not what attracts the eye. Like that one is amazing. The impact report.
Yeah.
They've given a lot of, I do like this proposal.
Yeah, I think they should be on the list to interview as well.
I agree.
Okay.
So I'll warn that there are a lot of interviews at this point. We're instead of taking the list and removing from the interviews, we're adding to it. So this just means more time for the groups that are interviewing to spend on these and a bigger decision.
Well, I think that we can all just decide how many do you want to interview? And then, if we're bringing them up to the interview section, review the top 5 again and see who would stay, who would go, and maybe stick to, 3 interviews, 5 interviews. I mean, I don't know what everybody here is in favor of.
So we had one more comment in the doc for Rhodes Creative. So I'm just going to share screen and then we can have all of our guesses and I'll hide the note and maybe we can narrow down from there. But this is one that Kate had flagged as well. This is Rhodes Studio. These I thought were amazing, but I thought the designs were great. I just got the vibe that it wasn't necessarily the best fit for Belchertown. And I didn't think they had a strong way of addressing community engagement, but I think the designs are fantastic. So
Yeah, I could go either way. I'm not like it's not a hill I'm ready to die on. So
but worth it for us to just take another look as a group.
yep.
That's Rhodes.
Can I ask a question on one of the no's?
Sure.
Not to add to your list of interviews, but Heard in Shutesbury. Are they I was not able to open their proposal for some reason. How far out of the ballpark are they?
Sorry,
Just
what?
because the Heard in Shutesbury, they're so local, like, but I couldn't open it.
Let me try to find them. So, okay. Here, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, here it is.
Personally, I thought that one was very bland. When compared to the other design proposals that we've seen, it looks like a lot less effort was put into this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate just because they're right in our area.
Yeah.
They also, I think this was the one that didn't actually submit work samples
Oh,
that the others had.
It's
I'm
linked.
curious, are those links, the designs?
Yeah, and at the in the top in the letter, it's like here and it's underlined, and that's a link to the portfolio. It's at the
Oh,
very
okay.
end of the letter. There it says studies here.
Okay.
oh.
I want to say they had broken links in that document too.
But it's bringing us to their website, which is this, which is great. Like we can see the logos, but we can't see like the process as some of the others had outlined. And again, it could be that it's just a smaller team and maybe they don't have the capacity.
Oh,
But
they have some pretty impressive clients.
Yeah, it's not clear to me if, like, what they did with these clients. Like, did they design these logos or did they do like a
Work
Facebook
for them,
I
campaign?
have
some
a
of them.
case study link on,
Yeah.
if you scroll up, there's a case study link on there. I saw.
Oh, on the top of their website.
Yeah, on the top of their website, there's a case study link. I don't know if that,
Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah, they just did Mass Humanities redesign. They did NIFAS. Those are two that I'm familiar with.
I don't
Yeah.
know. We have so many strong candidates. I'm not sure.
And I don't like that it's making us work to find the case studies.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
When the applications are this strong, like
Yeah.
even any details, you know, we have to go look around the website to find the thing, whereas someone took time and had it in a deck already. That said, I mean, the work is great. The stuff is strong. So if you wanted to add them to um, the interview list and then narrow down from there, we absolutely can. Let's see, pull up their proposal again. So yeah, and they did submit as a PDF, which is what we asked for, but it's a text PDF, not a deck necessarily. One thing that I found myself doing was control for community, to see when and where folks mentioned community engagement or community participation. And these are just names of organizations, but it wasn't exactly clear to me how community involvement would come up here.
A very valid point.
But they're familiar with it, so maybe they didn't think to specify that they would be getting community participation because they feel like they're part of the community. I don't know.
I mean, you can by all means add them to the list, but we're just about to go through the list. And again, there's just a couple that are really standing out strong.
Okay, so we'll put in Heard.
I don't know if so much their
So
location
don't
is
put
going to
Herd
be.
in because I brought it up. I'm in agreement. I don't feel strongly about them at all. Although I know I'm not a voting member. I was just curious because I couldn't see their proposal from the link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about Herd at all. I don't feel like they pulled it together. I just wanted to see them because they were so local to us.
No, I agree. I'm glad
Yeah.
you pointed that out. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put them as a maybe. As a maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we absolutely want to interview Locality and Magnifico.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thoughts on how many interviews we want to do and who else we absolutely want to interview.
I'd
Actually,
like to go to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I wanted to throw out Visual Studios or Visual Soldiers. Sorry. I actually didn't like their deck because the colors, like it was like bright colors and small fonts, and
Yeah, I
I'm saying
didn't
this
like
because we're being
anything.
very picky at this point, and I think we should be very picky at this point.
Yeah, all
That
day.
like very bright small text, and I have to bring in the need for accessibility and for people being able to read things correctly, and anybody with any kind of sight issues is going to have a hard time just reading this proposal.
And they
Um,
should know that because that's their field of work. 12 point across the board is at the bare minimum, and their font is incredibly small. And they should know that. That's their work.
They
Yeah.
also asked if a decision was made, knowing that there was a timeline for making a decision. Like that's in her notes. Like that kind of feels like there's a bit of a disconnect about how the process is actually going to work and different team members submitting and different people asking maybe. So that points to communication challenges.
And it's so nitpicky, but like as Chrissy said, like at this point, like
we need to be.
someone asked me a question that they could have found the answer to in many places that we had already published. Like
But they wanted you to do the work, right? And you're hiring them, so there's that.
Like someone didn't put their like another note I have is that when people are attaching their PDFs, like it's kind of a best practice to make sure that your organization name is in the PDF, not that it just says Belchertown proposal, right? Like you put your
Yep.
organization. It's these tiny nitpicky things that it just go to show their consideration and ability to make it easier on the client. Like some of these proposals did not make it easy on me. Like,
And not for nothing, but you'd think they'd brand themselves.
yes.
Yep, exactly.
There's that.
That said, like, there are a lot of when I'm thinking about my work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, um, one of the things that we strive to let go of is some of the stringency of these like unspoken rules, right? We didn't say send your proposal with your name in the subject line. We didn't specify that, but it sort of serves as a little bit of a, I don't want to say a test, but it just shows whether someone is sort of naturally doing things that are making the work a lot easier and smoother on behalf of the client, making it really easy for me, making it a little bit more challenging. Like how well are they thinking about us in this process? And it's not to say that once say this is exactly how we would like you to do so that it is easy for us to do, we absolutely can, but some are already doing it, right?
I have another suggestion for one to drop from the top of Mark Yapuying.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by him, getting the new state flag designed and out the door. And he only had three uh, examples in his proposal portfolio. And that was the only one that had any kind of government relationship. It just wasn't clear to me, like the depth of his government design experience.
Fair.
So this we did the flag for the city of Toledo, which I do think is like a very strong link. Like that is a very high pressure. It's a major city, lots of stakeholders. I do think that's a very impressive feat case study. But yes, that is the only one he did the Museum of Toledo, Toledo Museum of Art. But yeah, we
I'm not impressed by this.
Like if they were done through a local contest or something either. Like something that the town had opened up for them. Or if he did it in a strictly formal capacity.
correct, and he didn't specify that. So this is his website. Just it is very
Also,
art focused, design heavy, a little bit less municipal, I guess.
this one is also one of the only ones that would potentially go over the budget. They put site visit as optional, but it would estimate it at 1,440, bringing the total up to 11,427. So if we wanted them to come and actually visit the area, it would be over budget.
Which we did have a little bit of wiggle room because of how we set up the fee structure. But yes, it is more costly than others for offering the same and site, which I loved about locality, that they were offering sites
and still came under
budget. Exactly. So thoughts on removing the mark to a maybe?
Yeah, to a maybe. I was just looking at Swoon, and I might like their presentation, but they're in the British Columbia. And unfortunately that, again, it would be pretty much a time zone issue, but if there were any issues with the project as well, it would make it difficult in regards to being out of the country.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, they did with the United Way. It seems like they, I'm not going to say they don't do good work. I'm just questioning their location.
Yep.
Because they're out of the country.
I mean,
Address that concern during an interview process.
Yeah, true.
I would
And I
be,
feel like we're a little going back and forth. Like we started marking down who we're interviewing, and now we're kind of going back and forth whether or not we're recommending people for an interview. Are we targeting?
Yeah, I thought that's exactly what we were doing though, was bringing in the ones that were, were there and then discussing, bringing them in for the interviews and how many we wanted to interview.
Yeah, so we haven't
We need-
picked who we want to interview yet. So maybe that's like the first question we should answer.
so we
Yeah.
have confirmed that we would like to interview locality and Magnifico. We've put visual soldiers at a maybe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Who's a color font?
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Uh, how do just going down the line, how do folks feel about interviewing Scout Collective? This is their proposal.
I mean, should we agree on how many we want?
Yeah, I
So
would
that I can
first.
decide like who to
Yeah.
mix. But
We need
I'd like
first.
personally 3 to 4, I think was
I think three to four.
I would
With
say
a strong-
as a minimum, but
Sorry,
no more than 5.
Kate, I couldn't hear what you said.
I said 3 is a minimum, but no more than 5.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So currently we have 5 yeses. So we could just say, okay, let's interview all of them, or we could try to eliminate 1 to 2 if we're feeling really strongly that we've got like a top 3 candidates that are going to be great.
The thing is, I feel like we have a top 2 candidates, which I feel is great, but
Yeah.
for some reason it feels like we should be super comfortable with 3, and we're not getting that.
Yeah, and it's because we can't align on who's the best of the 3 remaining. Like we know we have 2 top candidates and we just need a third one to compare them
Let's
to.
all review the 3 of them again together.
Scout, Swoon, good.
I'm just gonna move these to the bottom so we can see what it went through. Okay. Got Scout, Swoon, and Good. So here is Scout's proposal. Chris highlighted their topography. They are somewhat local. Their font is also a little bit small, but here I'll make it bigger so that folks can see. I think their proposal was very long, so I'm just gonna scroll down to some of their past projects so we can.
I noted that they were the only ones whose timeline went beyond May 14th. And like the final delivery wasn't like the end for them.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, this was the one that had a lot of upfront. Like the 4 weeks
Right.
upfront feels like a little too much emphasis on that piece of it, where we are going to need a lot more time to review the designs and get into the production phase.
I also liked the idea that they suggested doing community conversations. And they have a strong community outreach platform.
Yep, this is where they talk about community outreach. I think in terms of the timeline, they went beyond because they were gonna they saw this as an opportunity to offer additional services. I think they offer implementation, which is really something that like Kate and I are going to work on, and Kate is going to lead, but they offer to support implementation as like an add-on. That's how I read the timeline.
Okay.
I'm not super.
I would bring them in for an interview.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay. Go back to our. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just feel like it's the 2 top runners because their presentations are amazing, but
So we are a yes to interviewing Scout.
yes.
And how do we feel about swoon and good?
So you marked them a good, a 2.5 on community engagement, which is obviously really important to us. So like, is that an area where we could look at and decide, okay, compared to everybody else, this is a reason enough to not move forward with this?
I agree.
What was it about it?
So this is their approach and methodology, our branding process. They didn't include, like they did include research and strategy, so understanding community. But there wasn't anything outlined here that was specific to bringing community voices in.
Okay.
And their proposed timeline, it's a project kickoff, initial design presentation, second design presentation, final deliverables. So knowing that some other timelines had room for surveys and community feedback, or like even just defining like iterations based on community feedback, like this to me reads as a timeline that they have established for all of their clients, and they added in specific dates based on the timeline that we provided, which is totally fair and acceptable. But where in this timeline does community feedback come into play, and how do you get it? And that's something that I think
That's a pretty big miss.
Well, look at the April
That's a
16th though.
huge miss.
Can I just quickly point out April 16th? Share refined design concepts based on stakeholder feedback from the initial round.
Yeah, so they say they're going to present 2 concepts and then you get 2 rounds of edits.
Well, that's concerning because edits you would want as many, until the job is right.
Yeah. Well, I think most of them have said how many rounds of feedback. Like, for example, I'm looking at Magnifico. They say they're going to present 3 to 5 directions, and then we pick one, and then we get 2 rounds of revisions on that. And then they show some of it to the public to get some more considerations before finalizing. So I feel like that's
I think
more
that's
thorough and
that's
thoughtful,
huge.
and yeah, that's reasonable.
I think another potential yellow flag with good is that they mention in more than one location that revisions and hourly rate is $150 extra, right? Like they call it out a few times that if we're being extra picky, they're going to charge us a bunch extra, and they already have us at exactly 10,000.
Yeah, I would let them go.
Yep, agreed. That's a great point.
okay.
So now we have 4. That seems good.
I like 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone is everyone in agreement that we will interview locality, Magnifico, Scout, and Swoon?
Yes.
Yes.
A mix of Missouri, Newbury, Massachusetts, Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and Vancouver.
I really think that's a great selection.
I agree. I think these are very strong applications. Next,
Do we need to have a motion for this or anything, or just an agreement?
you may do so, Mr.
I
Chairman.
think you should do a motion.
Just a motion to accept the 4 nominees for interviews.
I'll second.
Favor?
Second.
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
So moved.
Fantastic. And in
I
our
didn't get a second, did I?
I seconded it.
Oh, did okay.
And in our last couple of minutes, I will move forward with scheduling all of these based on the dates that we pre-decided. I just want to make sure we're clear on the questions that we're going to ask and who is going to ask those questions.
Can I just ask a meeting about a question about the meeting first? Did we have minutes to approve from our last meeting? Because that's on the agenda. So if we have minutes to approve from our last meeting, we should do that since it's on the agenda. Otherwise, it'll have to get moved to our next.
I have not sent those around, so I will need to finalize those and send them around.
Okay. Just making sure I didn't miss something.
Nope.
It's totally possible. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So just to clarify for the February 4th meeting, I need to add approval.
February 5th.
5th, thank you. Approval of I apologize, both January 29 today and January 22, was it? Minutes? Is that correct?
Maybe, Maud, you can just list it as a pool of outstanding minutes.
Great.
So
Okay.
are we still submitting minutes for any of the pre-committee meetings that we have? Or is it just the ones once we've gone to committee?
I would say just the ones that have gone to committee.
Right. Okay.
And then just to confirm the time for our next meeting, it is
It's
at
next,
noon that day or at 11 that day?
the next meeting is next Wednesday at noon.
Okay.
And we had blocked a potential interview slot, I believe, for earlier in the day. So I'll confirm interviews as soon as they're on this call. I'm going to reach out to folks and ask them what times they can do. I'll confirm and put this on everyone's calendar. And Maud will update with the town clerk.
Okay.
So we are not meeting on the 31st, correct?
We do not. No,
Because initially that was one of the days that you were talking about regarding interviews. So I'll
Yeah.
remove that from my calendar. I'm fine with that.
we're
Yeah,
waiting.
we all agendas have been submitted to the town clerk for all of these interviews, and they all include a portion for public comment on them. Is that what we meant to do?
I don't think we want public comment on the interviews.
Yeah, and none of them are marked as being special meetings. They're all marked as being standard committee meetings. So all of those agendas need to get updated with the town clerk as soon as possible.
Right.
Okay, well, for Wednesday, given that it's Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we wouldn't be able to get it in time for any updated ones for Friday until at least.
At this point, we need to cancel the Friday one because the agenda is incorrect.
Can we not just update the agenda?
Nope. Needs to have a 48-hour, actually, it's a 72-hour notice before they can be changed.
Can we amend the agenda in our meeting to say that we're not doing public comment?
Nope.
I mean, you could technically have the interview, end the interview, let them leave, and then allow public comment to happen.
Let's do that. Just so, I mean, maybe one is free on Friday, but I'd rather keep the option to interview someone on Friday so we get our timeline moved along.
Okay.
In which case, we would keep public comment for all of them, and Nate, I'll leave it to you to call for it at the very end of the meeting once folks leave. And I think we'll have to do that for this meeting as well. But just in the interest of, I know Molly has to go. I want to make sure that we're clear on what our interview questions will be, and maybe we can come back to the logistics of it.
Okay.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions they would like to add or amendments to these suggested questions? And Molly, I also didn't know if you wanted to walk us through the designer scorecard that you recommended.
Oh, I mean, what do you imagine that we would each get a copy of this and use it and then compare when we're finished with all of the interviews?
We could do that, or in the discussion period, we could all decide on, like, we decide on what number to give and have one scorecard per. It might be a little bit easier on the admin side to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we would just have to agree. This was something we used when we hired an agency recently. So we can talk about whether these are the right ratings, but basically it's a weighted scale based on what is the most important to us, and we would rank each group on these criteria, 1 out of 10, and then it would calculate the top, where they fall. So there's like the really hard qualifications on, well, I mean, everything is subjective in branding, so even that is subjective. But you can see here ranging from the qualifications that they have, their background that we can pretty much see in their proposal, to their approach and sort of how they talk us through the model that they're going to have, and like their collaborative nature. And then the intangibles is just more about how we're feeling like a connection with them. We feel like they're going to be good to work with. We feel like this is, the right fit. So maybe this is too much. We could eliminate some. We could shift the weightings, but it helps keep things more measurable and objective in a very subjective world that we're in.
I think within the approach, we might want to get more into what they're willing to offer in regards to community engagement.
Maybe instead of
More like a more clear point.
maybe we can make that an entire category because then it will be measured in two places.
Yep.
It'll be in the approach, but it'll also be in the qualification.
Yeah, that gives it a stronger weighting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that it's embedded in all three sections, really. I love this intangible section, Molly. I didn't have that in my initial ranking, and I think that this is going to be so important. Just compatibility with the team and passion for the project, exceeding expectations. Like Chris has already pointed to that. Like when we have such high level and excellent applicants,
Yeah.
there's tiny details that are going to make the difference.
And then you'll just have to add another column for the fourth interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so are folks comfortable with us using this scorecard?
Yeah.
Great. If you have suggestions that you like to make, you can feel free to email them to me and I'll try to incorporate whatever I can. I would say if we can, as a consensus, get these scores after the interviews together, it, on the admin side will be a lot easier and cleaner than having everyone cards and send them out. So I'm going to suggest.
And thank you, Molly, for doing this. Very helpful.
Yeah. Welcome. I just shared what I had.
Perfect.
And then in terms of questions, I asked, can you share examples of previous work where you've navigated challenges of branding or rebranding for a municipality or rural community? What specific strategies do you ensure that your designs were engaging and representative of the community's identity? Community engagement and input was, what methods have you employed in projects to incorporate community feedback? Where in your timeline do you see opportunities for community participation? How will you balance your own design principles and vision with community inputs? How do you see the role of graphic design in fostering a sense of identity and pride within a community, specifically in a municipal setting like Belchertown, where we're getting at like, what are we going to do this for us? And what ideas or concepts are you interested in exploring at this stage? Describe a time when you had to adapt your design to meet unexpected changes or feedback. How do you handle feedback that might contradict your design elements? And how do you ensure that your designs are accessible and inclusive? Can you provide an example of how you've incorporated those principles into your work?
I think the questions are good. My concerns are more around how the questions are going to be asked. Like, is it one person asking all of the questions, or are we going to be able to do like a round robin where we're each asking questions in a section or questions in a specific row? That way we ensure that we're asking everyone all of the same questions. Like, what are we putting in place to ensure that we're interviewing everyone fairly and following the same roadmap?
So if these are the questions we want to ask and we don't want to delete or add or tweak any, then I think we should have one person ask the same question each time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do have a question that I would like to see here if you all agree. It was one that Chris actually brought forward in the hiring process for the PM role around reflecting on our current visual identity. I think it's both a like, have they done their research and do they understand what we currently use, both on our website, our socials, this and that? Have they seen that, boat has something different from rec, or what have you? And also a way to assess like what are their kind of like initial responses to what we have, suggesting potentially like direction so we can understand what their vision is.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
I agree on that too.
Do you expect, or are we going to give them an agenda? Like, they might show up and be like, okay, I've got a deck to walk you through, and there's 5 minutes for questions, but we have a lot of questions here. So, like, is the expectation we give them 30 minutes to pitch us basically, and then we do this?
I think we're going to do a 30-minute interview where we ask these questions.
Okay.
And I think understanding and vision is what are your thoughts on Belchertown's current identity? What potential do you see for Belchertown? It starts with that. But it's much clearer the way you framed it, Maud, but that section.
I
And
actually would probably open the questions with what they thought about our current design.
Pardon?
That's what I would open with, what they thought about our current design. Because I think that that's the lead in, and then ask them the remaining of the questions, because the current design is, you know, it has a lot of history put in. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I agree that can go first.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's an important
kind of a benchmark.
Yeah. And I think it, right off the bat, help us get an idea of, if they're like, it's terrible, get rid of it, trash it completely, like, let's start brand new, fresh, right? Then like that says something, right? And if they
Right.
bring up the same ideas of like, let's, talk history, let's like try to incorporate some of those designs into the new ones so we're not letting it go. I think
But if they
that's,
did their homework, that's how I
yeah.
feel. If they did their homework.
Molly, you have to jump. Is there
Yes.
questions that you would like to be in charge of asking?
Oh, no, you can just tell me and I will ask them.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I'll see you all next week.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Any other amendments to these questions or things that are missing from the questions? And does anyone have a specific question that they would like to ask?
I think my only concern working in a sort of deadline area is their commitment to the deadline. Because that the delivery is a big deal. And would we get notification in regards, how do they handle that if they're running behind on a project? I feel that's important, because that falls on them. And how is that relayed to, deadline matters in all of this. And how committed they are to reaching the deadlines for the town. I hate to keep throwing the word deadline around, but it does matter.
Yeah, it does. And, do we have anything that falls into place if they go past the deadline, if they can't meet it? Like, are we able to get money back or something else?
Yes. How do they handle that? Yeah, basically.
So I'm going to suggest moving the adaptability into community engagement. I'm going to say engagement and adaptability. And then we'll do deadline management and collaboration.
Jen Turner, question for you. If for whatever reason the deadline doesn't get met, we are not at risk of losing any ARPA funds, correct?
We can't go over, we're not at risk, number one, but we would have to find additional source of funding, so.
So I think we're clear on that because of how we've structured the payments for this designer. So you need to pay Arts Equity Group by the start deadline, and then I'm going to pay the designer. So I think we would like a designer who sticks to the deadline.
Right. Okay. But we're not risking loss of funds.
Correct.
Okay.
No, but how will they accommodate if they don't make the deadline? Because they could,
Okay, so how do you handle communication with clients? How do you handle deadline management? Describe a time when you had to adapt your design to meet unexpected challenges or feedback. Maybe like, how did that impact your ability to go project? Maureen, would you like to ask that question?
I'm sorry.
Would you like to be the one to ask that question?
Well, I thought we were sticking to one person for the questions.
I think it's one person per section.
Oh, per section. Yes, I can do that. Sorry. I thought you had one person answering all the questions, and I just think the people, that are, you know, guided to make that vote, are listening. I think listening is the most important part.
Mhm. Chris, did you want to say something, or can I volunteer you to ask the accessibility question?
Yeah, so I have actually two questions. So the first one is for this list. If we're going to be asking the Vancouver group if there's any issues with them being able to connect and stuff like that, then we need to be able to ask that question to everybody because we're asking, that they all have to have the same questions to be fair. So we need to find some sort of way of framing the question of, are they able to visit Belchertown? Are they able to, or like, how do they expect to get the idea of Belchertown from where they operate currently, right? Which, like, people from Connecticut and Massachusetts will be like, well, I'll just drive over, right? It's 2 hours, I'll be there. People from Vancouver, from I think it was Ohio and another location, that's where they're going to have to explain how they're going to get over here, or how they're going to work with us, how they're going to meet the time differences. So those kind of questions should be in here somewhere. The other question I had is actually for our group. At the end of the last meeting that we had, my understanding was that we were creating a subgroup for these interviews, and that subgroup would be the ones asking the questions and attending the interviews themselves. Is that no longer the case? Are we all going to have to be there now? Which is not a problem. I just need to know that I need to be there.
Yeah, I thought it was the subgroup too.
Maud, do you want to share what Terry said?
Yeah, so Doug had reached out to Terry for clarification, and Terry said that open meeting was the way to move forward with this. And so that's why we have the agendas together
Okay,
for these holds. So that's where
gotcha. And
we're
that's
at.
what had
So
confused me before.
I believe, oh, maybe this is a question for the group then, of the people who said they wanted to be a part of the interview process. That does, I believe, does that still represent a quorum, or do we need to ensure that more of the group is present in order to make sure that we make quorum?
We have 5, so as long as 3 are present, we have quorum.
Were there 3 committee members? Yeah,
I want to say it was me, Maureen, and Molly.
Correct.
okay. So as long as you're all 3 there, then there's quorum.
Yeah, which if we did the meeting, and even if Nate and I couldn't attend, if the other 3 were available, or even if Molly couldn't attend or whatever, then one of us can step in.
So how does this work then? So right now we have Friday the 31st from 10 to 4. And what happens if we only get one interview scheduled for Friday and it's at 1? Do we open the meeting at 10 and just sit around until 1 with a meeting open? And let's say we only get one meeting and it's at 10 that day and we're done by 11. Do we leave the meeting open till 4?
I don't have the answer to that question.
So I believe, so all of it is being done online, right? We're all doing it in these Zoom meetings. So what we would have to do is have, so if the first interview was at like 1, but we were supposed to meet at 10, we need to meet at 10, deliberate that we are going to return at 1, put up a screen that says returning at 1, and then reconvene at that point.
Is that enough notice?
we adjourned early, we would put a screen up saying we've adjourned early.
We don't have to put a screen up saying we adjourned early, right? Adjournment is adjournment. Whoever showed up late missed. But if we're saying 10 to 4, again, like 10 to 4, and the person isn't going to be there till like noon, we have to meet at 10. We have to say we're reconvening at noon. And until then, we're on break, and then we put up, like I said, we put up like a screen. It just has to be something that says, back at noon or whatever, and then go from there. And then if we finish at, if it's 1 to 1:30, we finish, then we can all leave. We can, vote to adjourn, and that's that.
So unfortunately, I do have to put this out at the Friday meeting. My child does have an appointment in Worcester that I'm going to be driving for. So I'm able to listen to the meeting, but I just don't think I'm not going to be able to ask a question.
Okay.
I have to pick my son up at school at 2:45, so anyway, at that point. So.
I mean, I'm all for being there and, but I just won't be able to ask a question.
But then you also wouldn't be able to fill out your scorecard either, right? Because you'd
I
be
think
driving.
collective deliberation on scorecard.
I'm sorry?
I think we're going to do collective deliberation on scorecard.
Right.
But she has a spot for each person's name. So
I
it's
think we're not going to do that. We're going to do like
so
scorecard.
So are we going to? Do we all agree that these questions are what we're going to move forward with?
Yes, I do.
Yep.
So do we need a motion to accept these questions as written, as the interview questions, and move forward with that? Should I make a motion to accept these questions as written?
I think we should, so that way we know this topic is closed and we can move on to what else we have to do.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
I'll second
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you. So these are our questions. We have our interviewees. I will set up those interviews and write back to confirm. We are allowed to schedule over email. So I will confirm the schedule of these meetings. Once we confirm the schedule of the meetings, you can let me know if you're able to attend that meeting and what time. And then I will assign questions based on who is able to be there. The same questions will be asked. If different people ask the questions in different interviews, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And we'll just assign it based on, we can just go down the row, right? We can move clockwise in the Zoom room, go down the row. We have the questions here. I'll make a folder for every finalist with questions so that everyone can take their own notes in it. And we'll have a rubric for deliberation at the end. And I'll put an hour on the books on the calendar for an interview, and it'll be 30 minutes of discussion with the candidate, 15 minutes of discussion amongst the group. We can have 5 minutes for public comment, and then there's a 10-minute buffer between them.
Do we feel we can get through all of these questions with their responses within 30 minutes?
I think it'll be tight.
I do too.
Big
That's why I brought it up.
Some questions, but we added more. So
I think an interview being an hour isn't terrible.
45 minutes, 10 and 5, which would make the full hour. Because there are a lot of questions in.
okay, so I'll just try to do more buffer time. If we do 45 minutes I think we're going to need more than 5 minutes for discussion, or we can just do discussion at the end of the last interview.
I thought we were doing 10-minute discussion and then 5 for public.
Then we'll have to add buffer time between the next interview if we're doing any back-to-back, but we can block an hour of just content per interview and then have buffer time before the next one starts.
Well, I mean, this is your area of expertise, so I'm going to let you take the lead. If you think it should be a half an hour, I'm going to go with half an hour. It just does look like a lot of questions.
I was hoping that we would eliminate some questions.
Okay.
But if we need to ask more questions to get a better sense, then we can do that.
Well, so if we're looking to eliminate, I can say right now that the first one in question in section 2, share examples, we saw examples already.
That's valid.
Yep. And that's a long open-ended question that they could go on for 5 or 10 minutes on.
Yep.
True.
But it wasn't necessarily, so we can do examples of previous work. I think, how do you navigate branding for a municipality or rural community is important.
Mhm.
I mean, didn't we already vote on these?
We did. You're right.
We can technically go back and revise if we want to. It's committee decision. Or we could say that's that.
I mean, I'd say we move forward with what we had, because I mean that's
Okay.
just me.
As chair, you're yeah, we could do that.
I mean, that just kind of defeats the purpose of the vote. We just keep deliberating them.
So, I mean, 30 minutes, and then
Do 45 minutes for content, and we'll let the candidates know we have a number of questions, so we want to hear your answers, but please be brief.
Yeah.
A lot of questions to ask you.
I mean, if you don't have the questions, then you don't have the opportunity to shed some light on everything that we talk about. So, you know, I feel like it's important to have them all. But
Do these meetings need to be an hour? Can they be 90 minutes?
that would be a lot for one interview.
It's a lot for us, and it's a lot to ask of the candidates. I mean, I think we can ask an hour interview with the candidates and then have 30 minutes for our process work if folks are able to.
I'm honestly leaning towards, less deliberation on our end and doing more at the very end with that, instead of including extra time.
do we need to have an agreement on that, of how much time we're going to spend for each interview? Do we need to have a written target?
I think we do, because if someone can't appropriately answer questions within the time frame allotted, 1 out of the 4, that could be, point to communication issues that they might have.
That's a fact.
So we're going to target 45 minutes per interview, 5 minutes for public comment, and then we have 10 minutes for our internal discussion, knowing that we can keep that snappy. And at the end of the last interview, have 30 minutes of a longer discussion so that we can, I think the purpose of the discussion is there anything we're surprised about? How do we want to address this rubric? If we can do it in 10, we'll do it in 10. And if not, we can come back at the end and assess all of them in a group. It might be easier to do it that way.
I just out of curiosity, we're giving them at least 4 days to choose on interviews. What if no one chooses Friday?
Then we'll cancel Friday's meeting.
Okay. I'm not saying they will. Somebody might want to be the first then.
We need a motion to accept the target for the interviews. We have that? Do we need a motion for that or no?
I don't know that I'm not sure if we do.
All right. I'm just following procedure, that's all.
I'm not sure.
No, I think we're okay to just keep moving.
Okay. So we have our potential dates for interview. We have our candidates. We have our questions. We have our process. The only thing that's left to do is decide who is asking the question. We're just going to have to roll with it in the moment based on who's able to come at those times. I will make sure that we have 3 voting committee members in the meetings that we schedule.
Yeah, I'll definitely be in the meetings. I just can't ask the questions on Friday. The other days I can.
If you can't ask, I can ask the question, but you'll be present and part of quorum.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome.
I have some new business to bring up. If it's time for that.
It's not on the agenda, so I don't think we can bring up new business at this time.
Well, it continues the last conversation in the last meeting about new members. We have a formal letter.
So I think this was a special meeting to prep for the interviews. We can, I don't know if we're allowed to discuss it now, we can, but we can also just make sure it's on the agenda for our next regular meeting.
I mean, I sent you forward the email, Danielle.
Going forward, all of the agendas should have a note on there to discuss items that weren't anticipated by the chair within 3 days or something like that. So that way we have it built in so that we can discuss items that come up.
We did, and Terry told us not to have that. She told
Terry
us
to not have it because it's allowed by the state of Massachusetts. She just doesn't
Correct.
want it.
Correct. My wife works for the state. They use that in their agendas all the time.
okay.
I know that there's an argument between Terry and us and many groups on that. I'd be willing to fight that one. It's allowed in state agendas. We can put it in ours.
Well, but I will say that in the following regular agendas, I didn't include it in the agenda for today as a special meeting, but it is included in all subsequent agendas that we will discuss membership to this committee and any new letters.
Yeah, and the reason we really just need this meeting to decide on interviews, and we have our regular committee meeting where we discuss the survey and membership and all of the regular business at our regular meeting next week. So I don't know if there's a way for the chair to like just bring this forward, which is really handy. But the reason it wasn't on this agenda because it was specific to figuring out the interviews. This wasn't a regularly scheduled meeting.
I would just think it would affect the interview process if you have another member to the committee too, doesn't it?
I would suggest, Nate, if you have a new member who's interested, distribute that material to the rest of the group. Put it on the next regular meeting agenda for discussion if you guys want to invite them into the committee. And then if they are voted in, I would brief them offline, one person or Danielle or you, Nate, or whomever. And then we can figure out how to integrate them into whatever work we're doing.
It is on next week's agenda.
Okay. Because I
did ask
them
to have them attend any of the meetings going forward.
Okay. The other thing too was that I thought I heard somewhere that all the email communication had to come from Danielle. Am I misunderstood in that?
Well, Danielle's the project manager, but you're also the chair of the committee. So that's like more committee business than project management of this project.
Okay.
I would think so.
Just a point of understanding.
Yeah, you could send an email that is like, hey, here are some facts. Here is new information. Here is somebody who is interested along with their letter of interest.
Okay.
But then any deliberation about that has to be held within a meeting. So nobody should be replying back to definitely no reply all. We can all reply to you with just like little minor stuff, but we shouldn't be discussing anything big. But simply placing facts in an email is totally fine, just to get information out.
And Nate, I can send the interest that you sent in my prep for next week's meeting.
Okay.
Just didn't do it for this one because I was
okay.
Unfortunately, I have to leave, so I will see you all Friday.
See you all Friday. I don't know, Nate, do you want to close this?
Do we need anything else at this point? No, we're all good. Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.